My name is Giselle. At 35, I've built a 7-year career as a real estate agent in Brookline, an upscale suburb of Boston. Drawing on my experience in this neighborhood, I'm now recognized as a top performer, handling over 20 high-end properties annually. While my days were fulfilling as I poured myself into work, there was always a quiet longing in my heart for a family of my own. My life took a dramatic turn 3 years ago when I met Nathan, a vice president at an investment bank. At 37, he captured my heart at first sight with his gentle demeanor and inner strength. Highly regarded for both his professional capabilities and integrity, he, like me, valued his career while dreaming of having a family. After our wedding, we moved into a Victorian mansion built in the 19th century. Our newlywed life seemed perfect in this space where solid hardwood floors, antique furniture, and state-of-the-art security systems existed in harmony. Now, 6 months pregnant with our first child, I should have been enveloped in complete happiness. But everything began to change when my mother-in-law moved in. It happened in late February 2024. On a night when Massachusetts' bitter winter winds were howling, I received a phone call from Nathan. I froze when he told me Mother had a mild stroke. His voice trembled with anxiety, unlike his usual composed self. She raised me alone. For 25 years after Dad died in an accident, Mother sacrificed everything for me. Now it's our turn to take care of her. Nathan's decision was right. Of course it was. But at that time, I couldn't have imagined how dramatically this decision would change our lives. Nathan's mother, Eleanor, was a pillar of the community, a former city council member and current philanthropist who wore her gray hair in an immaculate chignon and dressed in luxury brands. With her perfect makeup and dignified bearing, she was the epitome of what everyone considered a lady. She seemed worthy of respect as she graciously hosted charity events and led church reading groups. However, at home, she was like a completely different person. The first signs of trouble appeared barely a week after she moved in. In this house, we always have dinner together at exactly 6 p.m. Not a minute late. Rice bowls must be arranged clockwise. Counterclockwise brings bad luck. The doormat must be cleaned twice daily. Appearances are everything, even without visitors. Each rule seemed minor on its own. But they multiplied rapidly, eventually becoming chains that bound my entire life. Nathan didn't seem to notice. Or perhaps he didn't want to notice. To his eyes, with his overseas business trips taking up more than 120 days a year, Eleanor still appeared as the perfect mother. In their thrice-weekly phone calls, she skillfully manipulated her son's perception. Mother is my hero. Even during the tough times after Dad passed away, she never showed any weakness. She raised me wonderfully all by herself. She's the most amazing woman. Each time I heard those words, my heart ached a little more. Her outward elegance versus her controlling behavior at home, the extreme duality gradually made me feel suffocated. But this was just the beginning. The real nightmare was yet to come. I discovered I was pregnant in early spring 2024. One morning in early March, as the street trees of Brookline were finally shedding their winter burden, I experienced unusual nausea and a home pregnancy test showed positive. Nathan wept with joy. After 7 years of fertility treatments, this pregnancy was our most cherished moment. However, Eleanor's attitude changed completely. When I tried to share my joy with her, pregnancy test in hand, she gave me an icy stare. Don't use pregnancy as an excuse to slack off. In my day, we managed housework perfectly even while pregnant. Nathan's laundry must be hand-washed. Iron everything twice. Dinner must have at least 3 dishes. Store-bought food is absolutely forbidden. From that moment, her demands regarding housework escalated to an abnormal degree. Up at 5 a.m. for cleaning the entire house. Garden maintenance. 3 home-cooked meals daily. Endless housework until 10 p.m. She even insisted I schedule prenatal checkups at times that wouldn't interfere with housework. Giselle, you're still so immature. This household wouldn't function without my guidance. Eleanor's words always began with criticism. She never once acknowledged my efforts. Instead, she constantly criticized me and bragged about her own perfect past. Meanwhile, Nathan's absences increased. Assigned to a major project in Asia, he was spending more than half of each month overseas. In their thrice-weekly calls, Eleanor cleverly manipulated the situation. "Oh, Giselle. She's trying her best. But she's still developing as a housewife. I'm kindly guiding her." Behind those words, her demands became more brutal by the day. When I suffered from morning sickness, she coldly dismissed it as lack of mental fortitude. When I couldn't eat due to nausea, she brushed it off as being spoiled. The situation took an even more serious turn. Around my 5th month of pregnancy, I began experiencing occasional dull pain in my lower abdomen. Though my obstetrician advised rest, Eleanor completely ignored this. Instead, her household demands increased. Rest is just an excuse. I know someone who ran a full marathon at 9 months pregnant. It's just your poor health management. My fear grew daily. Particularly unsettling was the strange expression Eleanor sometimes showed. Whenever she watched my growing belly, she'd display an almost hateful look. As if she had looked at someone else that way before. Sometimes, I wondered about an old photograph I found in the attic. It showed a young pregnant woman, just like me. The back read, Irene, 6 months pregnant, 2009, but Eleanor refused to discuss the photo. Then came the fateful day. Nathan was away on a 2-week business trip for an important project. Since morning, I had noticed signs of abnormal bleeding. The pain in my lower abdomen was the worst it had ever been. At 2 p.m. that day, I received an urgent call from my obstetrician. "Mrs. Walker, please come in immediately. There are concerning aspects in your test results. We may need immediate treatment." The doctor's voice carried obvious tension. "It's nothing serious. From my experience, there's no need to make a fuss. We're hosting the Whites from next door for dinner tonight. You need to prepare your best dishes." Eleanor dismissed the doctor's words as if she hadn't heard them. Outside, an early winter dusk was creeping in. Though the clock showed 4 p.m., shadows were already beginning to cover the room. A chill ran down my spine. I saw a look of madness in Eleanor's eyes that I'd never seen before. By 6 p.m. that evening, New England's winter darkness had already begun to envelop everything. The warm aroma of New England clam chowder wafted through the kitchen. but that smell only constricted my chest. The anxiety about abnormal bleeding, the intensifying abdominal pain, and above all, Eleanor's bizarre atmosphere had my entire body rigid with tension. "Eleanor, I'm terribly sorry, but..." I began with a trembling voice, both hands gripping the stainless steel kitchen counter for support. "I need to go to the hospital. The baby might be in danger." At that moment, Eleanor's hands stopped moving. She slammed her knife onto the marble countertop and slowly turned toward me. "In this house, family dinner takes priority." Her voice had completely lost its usual refinement. Several strands had come loose from her gray chignon, and her perfect makeup was distorted with anger. "But the doctors are being dramatic." Eleanor cut me off, ranting. Things were different in my day. We managed housework perfectly even while pregnant. "We're hosting Mr. and Mrs. White for dinner. We can't cancel over your minor health concerns." Outside the large kitchen window, street lights were beginning to illuminate one by one. Their light cast eerie shadows on Eleanor's face. From the neighboring white residence's windows, warm light spilled out. Tammy appeared to be reading by her usual second-floor window. "Eleanor, please." The baby's movement. I pressed my hand against my abdomen, stumbling toward the entrance. That's when it happened. "You useless daughter-in-law." As I turned around, a silver arc flashed before my eyes. A large pot of boiling clam chowder was flying toward me in a parabolic arc. "Ah!" Before my scream could echo, the scalding liquid hit my face and chest. Along with the burning sensation on my skin, a dull impact struck my abdomen. "A woman of your caliber isn't fit to be entrusted with my precious son." Eleanor's screams seemed to echo from far away. As my vision gradually blurred, I collapsed to the floor. "Just like Irene, that woman too." Eleanor's muttering barely reached my ears. Before I could understand its meaning, consciousness began to fade. At that moment, outside the kitchen window, Mrs. White's figure flashed briefly. In her hand was some kind of device. Yes, it was a smartphone camera. The next instant, piercing sirens split the winter night. Red and blue lights began to flash in the darkness. "I've called emergency services and the police." I heard Tammy's voice. As it turned out, she had been documenting my interactions with Eleanor for the past 6 months. Her instincts as a former counselor had detected the abnormality in this house. "It's okay, Giselle. You're safe now." Tammy's warm voice echoed at the edges of my consciousness. As the ambulance sirens drew closer, something moved inside me. It was the baby's response. A small but definite movement, as if saying, "Keep going, Mom." In that moment, I made a decision. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. The beginning of a battle to reveal the truth. Even as consciousness continued to fade, I made a vow in my heart. This nightmarish evening won't end as just a tragedy. I will expose the truth lurking beneath Eleanor's mask. And I must shed light on the shadow named Irene. As I was lifted onto the ambulance stretcher, I silently vowed in my heart. "Wait for me, baby. Mommy will protect you no matter what." The clock showed exactly 6:30 p.m. In the intensive care unit at Massachusetts General Hospital, I regained consciousness. The pain from burns on my face and chest was dulled by morphine, but a burning sensation still lingered throughout my body. The baby. When I asked in a hoarse voice, the attending physician showed a relieved expression. The heartbeat is stable. However, the next 72 hours are critical. Complete bed rest is necessary. At those words, I couldn't help but cry. But they weren't tears of relief. Because what I saw on the hospital room's television screen was something unbelievable. In a domestic violence incident that occurred last night in an upscale Brookline neighborhood, suspect Eleanor Walker has been arrested. The suspect is also suspected of involvement in a similar incident 15 years ago. The screen showed Eleanor being taken into police custody. Her once perfect gray chignon was disheveled, her luxury brand two-piece suit wrinkled. But her expression showed no remorse. Instead, there was an almost satisfied smile. The next moment, the hospital room door burst open. Giselle. Nathan had apparently come straight to the hospital on an emergency flight from Asia, his suit wrinkled. It was an uncharacteristically distraught appearance for someone usually so composed. Why would Mother? His voice trembled. In his hand was an old photograph, the same one of Irene I had found in the attic. The police report exceeded our imagination. 15 years ago, Nathan's first wife Irene Ford was also 6 months pregnant. Her disappearance had been processed as abandoning her husband and disappearing, but in reality. During the investigation, shocking evidence was discovered in Eleanor's basement. Irene's passport, mobile phone, and a diary. The last page contained disturbing entries. I'm scared of Eleanor. She's not happy about my pregnancy. Yesterday too, she accidentally spilled hot soup on me. Nathan doesn't believe me. Help. I remember that day. Tammy's testimony illuminated the darkness from 15 years ago. She had just moved into the neighboring house at the time. I heard Irene screaming. But Eleanor's political influence was too strong, no one could speak up. That's why this time, I couldn't let it pass. The video and audio records she collected over 6 months meticulously documented the madness lurking beneath Eleanor's perfect mask. The investigation revealed an even deeper darkness. The root of Eleanor's abnormality traced back 35 years. After her husband's accidental death, she developed an obsession with her son Nathan. Raising the perfect son became her life's purpose. In the process, Eleanor tried to completely control her son's life. In particular, her pathological aversion to anyone who threatened her position as mother was beyond reason. Her perfectionism and desire for control were outwardly channeled into building her reputation as a philanthropist. However, at home, they manifested in a distorted form as violence. I was right. Eleanor's words during interrogation vividly illustrated her madness. Those women tried to take my precious son away. Especially with children, trying to bear my dear grandchildren. But that child is different. That child doesn't carry my blood. So. Nathan collapsed into a chair while reading his mother's statement. Why didn't I notice? His self-reproach was deep and heavy. Over 120 days of overseas travel annually. Absolute trust in his mother. And his own blindness in easily believing his first wife's disappearance. Let's put an end to this. I held Nathan's hand while still attached to my fore. This isn't the end. It's a new beginning. Spring sunlight streamed through the hospital room window. And as if in response, the small life inside me moved again. The clock showed 3 p.m., exactly the time Irene had disappeared 15 years ago. June 2024, Boston District Court. Early summer sunlight streamed into the solemn courtroom. Defendant Eleanor Walker. The jury's verdict will now be read. As the judge's voice resonated, I unconsciously placed my hand on my now large belly. 8 months pregnant. We had fought a long battle since that incident. On the counts of aggravated assault, intentional harm to a fetus, and evidence tampering in the Irene Ford disappearance case from 15 years ago, guilty on all counts. As murmurs filled the courtroom, Eleanor's expression twisted momentarily. But she quickly regained her characteristic graceful smile. I hereby sentence you to 20 years in prison. In the front row, Nathan closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his cheek. Tammy, sitting beside him, gently placed her hand on his shoulder. After the sentencing, Eleanor spoke in public for the first time. I only did what was best as a mother. The entire courtroom fell silent at these words. To be the perfect mother, to protect my perfect son, that was my everything. Surprisingly, her expression showed no remorse. Rather, it seemed to carry a sense of accomplishment. A week after the sentencing, there was a new development. We received a call from the Brookline police. Items believed to belong to Irene Ford have been discovered in a hidden room in Eleanor's basement. These were decisive pieces of evidence revealing the truth from 15 years ago. Among the items were a maternity handbook with the expected delivery date and an unsent letter to Nathan. Dear Nathan, if this letter ever reaches you, I may no longer be in this world. But I want you to know, my love for you was real. And my love for our unborn child. The letter was dated the day before she disappeared. The investigation continued to reveal the dark side of Eleanor's charitable activities. Evidence tampering using political influence, pressure on the police, and above all, the cunning way she perfectly maintained her public facade. Mother's actions can never be forgiven. Nathan's words at the press conference were powerful. However, her actions have taught us an important lesson. That domestic violence and control are never just personal issues. They are problems that society as a whole must address. These words resonated with many people, especially becoming a beacon of hope for those suffering in similar situations. In late July, we moved to a new house. A quiet residential area in Cambridge. A light-filled home surrounded by old trees. While helping with the move, Tammy found a photograph while organizing boxes. It was Irene's photo from 15 years ago. Let's display this photo in the living room of our new house, I suggested, and Nathan quietly nodded. Because Irene is someone we should never forget. That evening, we held a small barbecue party in the backyard. The Whites, the detective in charge, and our legal team, everyone came to celebrate the beginning of our new life. Cheers! As glasses were raised, I looked up at the sky. A shooting star gleamed in the summer twilight. At that moment, there was a strong movement in my belly. This little one is very active. Nathan smiled gently as he placed his hand on my stomach. She'll surely grow up to be strong. Everyone nodded at Tammy's words. On the morning of August 15th, a bit earlier than expected, our daughter was born. A healthy baby girl weighing 3,200 grams. Her name is Irene. Irene Walker. Illuminated by the morning sun streaming through the hospital window, the baby showed her first smile. In that moment, I was certain. This is what a real family means. Not seeking perfection, but accepting each other's imperfections and supporting one another. That's the true nature of family. In a vase in the corner of the hospital room stood wildflowers that Tammy had picked. Among them was a single white lily, Irene's favorite flower. As Nathan held the baby, he whispered quietly, "This is our new beginning." Outside, a gentle wind heralding a new season tapped softly against the window.